On a barren alien planet, a vulture was gnawing on a man's finger when the neck unexpectedly caught him. Dick is badly wounded. To make matters worse, the planet is full of crises. It's not just vultures that want to eat him. There are all kinds of unknown and dangerous creatures. Dick dragged his injured leg, struggling to crawl on the ground, finally found a water source, but the water there could not be drunk. To survive, he had to heal his broken leg. He shoved his leg into a stone crack and twisted it violently to force it to reset. The pain was so intense that he could not help but hiss loudly. The screams attracted a pack of hungry hunting dogs. Dick immediately decided to dive into the water. The hounds smelled the blood, chased him to the water's edge, and hesitated to leave. Dick can only hold his breath in the water. A few eels smell the smell of blood swimming around to suck his blood. Finally, the hounds lost patience and left. Dick slowly reveals his head, but he just landed. There is still a hound dog that did not leave. If the usual even 100 hounds are not his opponent, Dick had an idea. Take off the armor as a frisbee far away to throw. Sure enough, this action triggered the passive hounds. Taking advantage of this opportunity, he removed a piece of armor with screws through the flesh fixed on the bone. Dick was afraid of inviting the hounds. The hole did not say anything, finally resumed walking, just looking for some water to drink. The hound showed up again. This time the pond poked two strange tails, and hound curiosity did not escape. Suddenly a scorpion monster rushed out and bit the hound. The toxin killed it instantly, scaring the other hounds to flee. Here are the skeletons of other animals scattered. Dick is creepy, and suddenly, a larger scorpion monster from the water emerges. Dick picked up the bone stuck in its bloody mouth and took this opportunity to quickly leave the pool of water. Seeing this, one has to ask who he really is and why he has fallen here. Dick was originally the commander-in-chief of Star Wars, and he does not know that someone has been thinking about his throne for a long time. Dick was assassinated in an operation and eventually fell off a cliff. I did not think he survived. On this planet of yellow sand filled with the life of a wilderness hunter, one day when he was out hunting, he found a dying beagle, so he took it back and kept it in captivity. Dick every day in the water pond fishing, removing the skin and hanging up into a delicious jerky so that the food problem is solved. A few days later, Dick climbed the peak of the rock when a new discovery. Plenty of water and grass was in the distance, which meant survival was easier. But the problem was that a scorpion monster blocked the only exit. This is a kind of scorpion monster containing poison. Dick held his head and extracted the venom, carefully drawing his poison needle and making a simple syringe. He first put a small dose of venom in the beagle to do experiments, found no serious harm, and only then felt confident to boldly inject themselves, although there was an adverse reaction at first. As time goes by, Dick slowly adapts to the toxin. It's time to clear the road-blocking monster. Dick leaped down and returned to the mud puddle, a scorpion with a spiky tail sticking out of the mud puddle. Dick waved his bones and struggled with it. To kill it in one blow must cut off its head. Dick stretched out his legs to lure the scorpion. The scorpion could not resist the temptation, a bite on his thigh. Dick, forced to endure the pain, immediately swings the knife down hard. Only a few blades will cut off the monster's head. See the master victory? The beagle is also over their crazy provocation. At this time, the larger scorpion king behind Mark quietly appeared. It was as big as the alien queen. It rushed up and launched a deadly attack, throwing Dick far away. The hound was not aware of the danger and remained there to provoke. At the critical moment, Dick picked up the beagle, grabbed the machete and cut through the Scorpion King's crotch, and gave it disembowelment, which killed the Scorpion King. Then one man and dog left the horrible canyon and traveled a long way to the new world with rich resources. Here they finally did not have to eat raw fish. Man and dog collaborate, and hunting has become much easier. One day, they found a bounty hunter's resting base, which appeared to be abandoned. In addition to some equipment, there was a bag of expired food that even the dogs wouldn't eat. The weather on the alien planet is unpredictable. A storm is about to sweep in. Under the dark clouds, hordes of monsters are coming this way. Dick realized that something bad immediately activated the emergency distress system. After the system scan, I sent his information out. It turns out Dick has become the #1 bounty hunter list. As long as the kill will have double the reward. Soon two teams found the place. One team was led by Santana simply for the money. The other team was Dick's former subordinates, with an even simpler purpose, just to kill him and replace him. However, Dick had already left, leaving only a message for them to go to the ship and get out, or else they would be killed. Bounty hunters are desperate people who will not be intimidated by this simple warning. The two sides deliberately removed a battery and locked it into the cabinet to prevent ship theft. The one-eyed robot began to set up. and several sensors were planted around to detect Dick's trail. At night, the hound first appeared and quietly stole a sensor. Dick keeps sending signals through it, and the one-eyed robot is disturbed and seems to be losing control like crazy. Santana couldn't stand it anymore and unplugged the power, and asked his men to replace the sensor with a new one. The poor guy took a few steps to step on the trap and was caught in two on the spot. In the darkness of the night, another of his men also lost his life. In just one night, they lost 3 men, one of whom was missing, and they didn't even see Dick's shadow. The next day, they found Dick's hound. The female sniper set up her gun, took out a tracking round, held her breath, and hit the hound's ass at 1,500 meters. With positioning, finding Dick's hideout became much easier. The bounty hunters rode their motorcycles and drove rapidly toward the marked location. The 3 of them started the electric light gun into the dark cave. There seemed to be moving behind them. The panicky few hurriedly fired, and the person who was hit was the same teammate who disappeared last night. They suddenly realized it was Dick's diversionary tactic. On the other hand, Dick has quietly sneaked into the base. This monster is fierce and contains poison, but it has 2 fatal weaknesses. One is inseparable from water and the other is afraid of sunlight. Whenever a storm comes on this planet, they will burrow out of the mud to feed. If you do not want to be eaten, you must leave before the storm comes. Bounty hunters to prevent theft of the ship. The starter battery locked into the safe. Dick stole the female sniper's makeup mirror while in the shower. Dick unknowingly climbs to the ship's top, while the 2 men guarding the boat are unaware of it. When the 3 men chasing Dick return to the base, it is too late. Dick stole the battery from the cabinet and left a note on the door to make a deal with them. Dick hid the battery and then walked back in. As he approached, he threw away his weapon and took a negotiating stance, asking the bounty hunters to give him a ship, and he would return the battery. Otherwise, there would be monsters when the storm came, and no one could leave alive. In the face of his words, bounty hunters do not believe and suddenly launch a sneak attack. At the critical moment, Dick's hound pounced on him to save him. The hound bit Santana's arm and did not let go. The hound unfortunately died under the female sniper's gun. The female sniper in the distance had already prepared anesthetic bullets, although Dick has antibodies, but also cannot withstand repeated shooting, finally fell. When he woke up again, he was trapped and forced to reveal the location of the battery. Dick was very clear, as long as he said would certainly die. At this time, the storm covered the entire area. Just daylight turned into night. In the heavy rain outside, the mud became muddy. Countless scorpion monsters broke out of the ground. One team member couldn't resist shooting out the window, but he didn't expect the scorpion's poisonous needle to pierce his body through the steel plate. Everyone was so scared that they immediately opened fire. However, the scorpion monster had already climbed to the roof, and one team member had swept away without reacting and, with the weak defense of the base, could not hold out for long. Everyone began to panic and finally believed Dick's words. The captain wants to let him go, but Santana insists on cutting off Dick's head to avenge the death of his brother. Although Dick was tied hands, he is more than enough to deal with him. A kicked-away machete, originally prepared for Dick's box Santana themselves instead of using it. Everyone rushed out of the base with a bang, shooting at countless monsters. Finally, scorpion monster flesh and blood flying. Finally killed a blood road to the airship, but suddenly burrowed out of the small monster. But a team member died of poison a few moments later. Dick led the 2 motorcycle riders towards the burial site. Under the endless rainstorm, the land is dark, where there are countless monsters lurking. The good thing is that the speed of motorcycle speed through the monster blockade. Dick digging to take out the battery. At this time, the bounty hunter beast suddenly sneaks, attacks, and knocks down the captain, but they also want to kill Dick, avenge the dead boss, and get a large bounty. However, the beast still underestimated his strength. Dick got away and entered the mud pit, took out a machete leap to make the full force of the beast end. Unwillingly, the beast fell when the trigger pulled and broke the motorcycle. What's worse, the sound of gunfire attracted many monsters, and the 2 back to the battery could only return on foot. The captain used the gun to solve a. Dick picked up a machete swinging wildly. 2 people all the way to rely on each other, but kill a bloody road. However, back at the base, Dick was hit by the monster's fangs, and he tried to pull them out, but found that the blood flowed so much that he had to put them back in. The captain stalled, threw flash mines, decisively took the batteries, and then turned and ran, leaving Dick in endless despair and resignation. But he did not give up. Picking up the fireball on the ground, pulling out the fangs, and using high temperature to stop their bleeding, to avoid being surrounded, He climbed towards a higher peak and slashed at the scorpion monster with all his might. Even though the knife was cut off, still did not stop fighting, while killing and continuing to escape upwards. Even he didn't know how many monsters he had beaten. Finally, he lost his weapon and was forced into a desperate situation, seeing that he was about to become the monster's food. Dick let out a final roar. They came in a blimp to support Mark. With the shells raining down, all the scorpion monsters were instantly blown to pieces. The captain did not give up on Dick. When the female sniper fell from the sky, staged a beauty to save the hero, the woman in front of him was undoubtedly the most beautiful he had ever seen. In this way, Dick, with his tenacious and unyielding desire and courage not to give up, finally left this terrible planet in spirit.